No capital in Jerusalem, no right to return. That's what US President Donald Trump has offered Palestinians in his plan for the Middle East. In return, he's promised Arab investment in Palestine. But Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shtayeh has already said the plan will be buried soon. I am Fatih Yavuz, and I am speaking one-on-one with Shtayeh about Trump's plan, reconciliation with Hamas, and the Palestinian economy. Prime Minister Mohammad Shtayeh, thank you very much for being with us. Recently, you've been to Munich, and in Munich Security Conference, you said Donald Trump's Middle East plan will be buried soon. I want to ask, how do you plan to bury this plan?
The plan has been born dead. The best thing to do to a dead thing is to bury it. We have been in full consultation with the Europeans, and the Arab League has also made itself clear. African Union has made itself clear. Muslim countries have made themselves clear. So the plan has no partners whatsoever. From our side, we have come up with some ideas that are alternatives to the plan. One is just simply to replace American monopoly with an international forum. Second, instead of using this plan, which has no basis, which cannot be a basis for anything, we came up with a suggestion to bring up the whole United Nations resolutions that has to do with Palestine, and that it becomes really basis for future negotiations based on international conference. So it is not only we who will bury it, but the whole international community who did not buy it, and therefore it will fade away.
So you say that you will give an alternative to international arena.
Correct.
So what will be the concrete steps that you would take to apply this alternative plan?
We have gone, our president was at the United Nations, and now there are some deliberations that has to do with a resolution vis-a-vis the whole conflict. And also we are in direct contact with the European Union. European Union had consultations just 2 days ago, and they will continue their consultation on March 17, obviously after the Israel elections. And I think the Europeans will come up with parameters for the solution. The European parameters are in full harmony with our position, as well as with the Arab League position when it comes to a solution. So this is the alternative that we are providing by the international community, by us, to try to not to have the Trump plan on the table only, but just simply to have an alternative.
So I want to ask Turkish position regarding Middle East, Trump's Middle East plan. How do you evaluate Turkish position regarding Trump's Middle East plan?
3 days ago, President Erdogan presented a book to the President of Pakistan and to the Prime Minister of Pakistan. That book is about the history of Palestine, which was translated in 3 languages: Arabic, English, and Turkish. That's a message that Palestine occupies the heart of every Turkish man and woman, of every Turkish politician, of every member of the Turkish government, of the Turkish president. And therefore, Turkey is supporting us fully, whether in Islamic forums, in international forums, and Turkey is also helping us financially and with some projects in Gaza as well as in the West Bank. So therefore, we appreciate the Turkish position when it comes to this sort of financial, political, spiritual, and emotional support. I know that every Turkish person has 2 soft spots in his or her heart: Bosnia and Palestine, and we appreciate that.
So number of times Palestinian leadership has said United States actually lost its mediator role. So when we look at the diplomatic side, if there is a good relationship between 2 countries, that creates interdependency. So when we look at United States and Israel, there is an interdependency that is actually good for Palestinians, because via United States you can push Israel for a possible deal. Don't you think that you still need United States to push Israel?
That's a good question. The problem is that this does not make the United States qualify to be objective broker or honest broker. The problem is that the United States is in strategic alliance. The problem is that this plan in particular has been authored together between Israel and the United States. So for the plan for me is no more than a memo of understanding between Netanyahu and Trump. One. Second, you are right. You need the United States because of this special relationship with Israel to push Israel. The problem is United States has given Israel everything she wanted and they are pushing us only. Now, that is why we proposed and we said, with United States only, things are not possible. Without United States, things are not possible. And therefore, the in-between, no United States alone and United States, yes, to be engaged, it means the formula is an international conference in which we are ready to have the catalyst for this international conference, the Quartet, the Security Council, the high signatories on the Fourth Geneva Convention, any international forum, but our main concern is to break the American monopoly over the peace process because the United States is 100% biased towards Israel.
From my interpretation, you're not only proposing another plan, but you're actually proposing a new system for conferences, because when the United States says something regarding Palestinian-Israeli issue, all the media and all the politicians says, yeah, that might be the plan to be implemented. Now you're offering not only new peace plan, but also a system. Am I right?
Yes, you are right. We are asking for a forum, and we are asking for a terms of reference for the forum. My dear friend, let me tell you, why did this peace process fail? Or why did this peace process did not really bring all the results that are needed? Any successful peace process needs a recipe for success, which means agreed upon terms of reference. You need time frame. You need honest broker. You need confidence building measures, and you need good intentions. These 5 criteria are not there. Therefore, whatever the exercise is, the result is a failure. Palestinians, they care for successful process, not for a failing process, because it is not Israel that is under occupation. It is we who are under Israeli occupation, and we are so keen to help our people get out of this misery that is called the Israeli occupation. We want successful process, not a failing process. The issue for us is not to blame this and that. The issue really is that we want a coalition, an international coalition to end occupation on the basis of international law, United Nations resolution with an international formula.
When we look at the timing of the release of the Middle East plan, it looks suspicious for a number of analysts and also journalists because of the Israeli election. Do you think that is just to save Prime Minister Netanyahu?
For sure. The timing is not innocent. The timing has to do not only with Netanyahu, it has to do with President Trump as well, because President Trump was facing impeachment and President Trump is going into elections, and he wants the evangelical church to be on his side, which is very biased towards Israel. Netanyahu also, because he is the partner of the American administration on the plan, obviously the timing came to boost Netanyahu in the election campaign. So therefore, the timing is not innocent, and the content. Imagine that the Prime Minister of Israel has accepted up front, in the same minute that they were talking about the plan, he said, I accept, and he wanted to immediately go and implement his part. Obviously, the Americans told him not to do that. But by all means, Netanyahu wanted to capitalize on that to try to boost himself in the election.
And when we're talking about the Israel election, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that they will annex those settlements in the occupied West Bank. And his main rival, Benny Gantz, also saying the same. What would you do if there is an annexation tomorrow? How would you take these concrete steps to stand against?
Good question. Our relationship with Israel is based on 4 different angles: political, economic, security, and legal. We have already, the Palestinian leadership has already decided that we are going to stop the 4 relationships with Israel if Israel is going into that direction, because I will tell you why. Simply because the whole idea of the peace process was to end occupation. Now, if Israel is annexing the Jordan Valley, which is 28% of the total area of the West Bank, and the settlement blocks, which is 10%, and then the wall, which is 13%, that is together is 51% of the West Bank. So the whole idea of two-state solution is finished. The whole idea of Palestinian aspirations to live in an independent Palestinian state is finished, and the annexation of Jerusalem is actually that will put the whole end of the Palestinian aspirations. But the danger that Israel is going is that the Americans are giving the cover this time. Israel has been building settlements, but all international community were saying that these settlements are illegitimate, illegal. Now the problem is the superpower of the United States is giving cover, political support for Israeli unilateral measures that have been happening on the ground, and for Israel next measures to be taken. We are aware of this, and we know we will not allow that to happen. Our economic relationship with Israel is not going to be the same. Our security relationship is not going to be the same. We are now in the ICC, and remember one important thing. In the text of the Trump initiative, he was talking about Palestinians to qualify for a state, they have to withdraw their application from ICC. We will never do that. So therefore, these four relationships, it will be interplay, and the timing of the implementation has to do exactly with the Israeli immediate measures of annexation or not.
So in Munich conference, you met ICC chief prosecutor. I want to ask, if it is possible, what did you talk, and what should we expect should we expect any ICC resolution regarding Israel's alleged war crimes?
We have, in our discussion, we have stressed one important thing, that we need the court to move as fast as possible to try to protect our people. One. Second, we warned that some people on the side of Israel try to politicize the court. And we were telling the Prosecutor General that our main concern is to keep the process as professional as it should be and to keep it as legal as it should be. We have seen statements by certain country who wanted to support Israel. That is a total politicization of the court, which we totally reject. The lady has assured us that she will continue to be by the book, as professional as it should be, and they will protect the court from any external interference here and there.
Okay, I will go with reconciliation with Hamas. Now it looks like it's time to have a reconciliation with Hamas, because there is a Middle East plan that is not in favor of Palestinians. Don't you think it is time for reconciliation with Hamas?
It's always the time. It's not only today that it is the time. Yesterday was the time. The day before yesterday was the time. Tomorrow is the time. We need ending the split. Palestinians are united to confront the American plan. And we have also said that even though we signed 4 agreements with Hamas, unfortunately the 4 agreements were not implemented. Now we are saying that, okay, if the agreements did not really work and did not end the split, let's go to the people. And the whole idea of calling for elections, it is to go to the people. We think that elections is a door opening for ending the split. And our President Abbas, has actually stated on the 26th of September 2019 that we want to go for elections. Luckily, Hamas has accepted the idea of elections, and that all Palestinian factions now are united behind the idea of elections. The problem is we have another impediment that has to do with Israel and the voting of our people in Jerusalem. Our people in Jerusalem have voted in the 1996 elections, in 2005 elections, and in 2006 elections. It's not only that, but also the Israeli-Palestinian protocol on election and part of the interim agreement, it does allow Palestinians from Jerusalem to vote. And therefore we insist that our people in Jerusalem should be part of the election process. At a time when President Trump is saying that Jerusalem is for Israel, we are saying no, Jerusalem is an integral part of the Palestinian territory. We hope now, obviously, we sent a letter to the Israelis asking them to facilitate our elections in Jerusalem. The Israelis are saying no, and they are not saying no, and they are not saying yes. So the Israelis obviously decided not to answer us. We will wait for the coming few days until Israel goes beyond its elections, and we will call upon Turkey, Europe, the whole international community to really help us with putting serious pressure on Israel to allow Palestinians in Jerusalem to vote, so that we will use the election as a door entry to ending the split between Fatih and Hamas, Gaza, West Bank, and so on and so forth.
So I want to ask, as you said, that there are a number of Palestinians, as you said, Palestinians who are citizens of Israel. But when we look at the whole world, there are Palestinians who are refugee camps.
Correct.
There are Palestinians who are your diaspora, living in Europe, in Middle East, also the other countries. And also there are Palestinians in Gaza Strip.
Correct.
Palestinians in occupied West Bank area A, B, C. They have different conditions. And you are the Palestinian leadership. How do you want to find a unified language to talk to those people?
The unified language is the political platform of the PLO, which has been accepted by 13 out of 15 Palestinian political factions. We are also initiating dialogue with Hamas to try to come to an understanding. Hamas has come forward. Hamas now accepts two-state solution. Hamas accepts 67 borders. Hamas accepts most of the political components of the PLO platform. We are sending a delegation to Gaza, Fatah plus PLO factions, to engage with Hamas to try to come to a unified front of how to deal with this election if Israel continue not to allow us to have it in Jerusalem. What do we do after that? And second important issue, unifying front for facing the challenges that are imposed on us by this Trump plan and so on. So the Palestinians all over the world, they stand united, whether they are in the refugee camps of Lebanon, Syria, in Jordan, in Egypt, in the West Bank, in Gaza, and inside Palestinians inside Israel. We are all united behind rejecting this Trump initiative. And therefore, this is more than one common language. But also, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza inside Israel, we are 6.9 million. There are also another 7 million Palestinians or more in the diaspora. There is no way that you can solve the Palestinian problem without solving the problem of the refugees.
So let's go to Palestinian economy. You rolled up your sleeves on March 2019 with an economic development plan, as you do now. So was your strategy disengagement, diversification, and clusters? How do you evaluate the Palestinian economy right now, and how your strategy will affect this Palestinian economy right now?
Thank you for this question. Look, we are under occupation. Israel employs mechanisms of control. We and Israel are in a custom envelope. We have no control over borders. We have no control over water. We have no control over our phone calls. We have no controls over our electricity. We have no control over roads. So the situation that we are in, we function under the most unusual condition, which we function under a colonial regime that's called the Israeli colonial regime. One. Secondly, we were hoping to end this occupation through negotiations. It didn't work. Therefore, this government, under the instruction of our president, we decided to tackle things instead of doing it from top to bottom through negotiations, now we try to do it from bottom to top through what we call a gradual disengagement from the colonial dependency that has been imposed on us by the fact that we are under occupation. Now, what is the colonial dependency? We import 95% of our electricity comes from Israel. Palestine, we have 310 days of sun. We can replace that with solar energy. That is possible. With the water balance sheet in the Palestinian territory is 800 million cubic meters. Israel takes 600 million cubic meters of water from our water, and they sell us the rest. We can do water harvesting. We can build wells. We can do dams. We can do so many things so that we become some sort of self-sufficiency when it comes to water and so on. Now, we have also decided that to go into what people in economics call import substitution strategy. Why do I have to buy few things from somewhere else? I can produce these things, agriculture, focus on some small industries, focus and encourage and develop the productive capacity of the Palestinian economy. Palestinian territory has unique regional diversification. Jordan Valley is the lowest port on earth. You can eat fresh tomatoes 4 times a year. I don't have to import any tomatoes from anywhere, not from Israel, not from the rest of the world. We can produce tomatoes. We produce cucumbers. We produce these things, the dairy products. These are things that I don't have to buy from anywhere. All what we need is just to direct it, focus it, and encourage it, and bring some investment into these kind of things. Also, why do I have to buy from Israel only? We don't have to buy from Israel. Israel wants to sell us only. We are saying no. We can import from Turkey. Now, by the way, we are exporting to Turkey dates. We are exporting things. We can import from Turkey. We can import from Europe. We can import from Arab countries. We can import from anywhere. We don't have to be victims of one single trade partners. That is where colonial dependency is. So therefore, we decided to break it. And I think we are successful in doing that, encouraging productive capacity, national product. Our exports to the world increased by 16%, and our imports from the rest of the world increased by 13%. So it's a slow process, it's a gradual process, but we are in the right direction.
In Trump's Middle East plan, it says $50 billion investment foreseen for Palestinians. And it's also saying it comes mostly from Arab funding. And a number of reports say there is a growing relationship between Gulf countries and Israel. What if one of those Gulf countries come and say, now we have a formal relationship with Israel? How would you react?
You asked me 3 questions in one. I will answer. The economic part of the story, the $50 billion is not really to support the Palestinian economy. You know, countries today, they are helping us. Europe, Arab countries, they are helping us. Why? Because they are helping us to develop our economy and develop institutions in order for us to develop a Palestinian independent state on the borders of 67. So that is political, that's money for political support. The American proposal is money in return of Jerusalem. So it is a trade-off. It's a selling of this. We will never accept money for Jerusalem. We will never accept money for Palestine. Palestinians, they don't want money in terms of as political bribe. We don't accept that. We welcome every assistance. Yes, Turkey is helping us a lot in terms of developing our infrastructure and so on. But Turkey is also helping us politically, is not only financially. That's the difference. One. Secondly, there are, of course, certain Arab countries that has diplomatic relations with Israel. Egypt has an agreement, Jordan has an agreement, others and so on. But frankly, I don't think that countries who want to win the heart of Washington has to go through Tel Aviv. You don't have to do that. The Arab Gulf countries does not need this relationship. And I will tell you, the Israeli propaganda was saying that, you know, some Arab ambassadors attended the ceremony of Trump and Netanyahu. But we have seen these Arab countries coming to the Arab League and saying, we totally reject the Trump plan. So we know that there are some pressures here and there, but in general, I don't think that Arab people, Arab countries will ever give up on Palestine. We will enjoy their support in the same way that we enjoy the support of Turkish people, Turkish government, Turkish president, Europeans, and Africans, Latin Americans, and the American people. By the way, 107 congressmen signed a letter to reject the Trump initiative. Senators as well, professors, and so on. So there is an international consensus for support. And by the way, Trump, with his plan, he brought the whole Palestine to be on the top of international agenda again, while, the Arab change of season, or what people call the Arab Spring, it did push back the Arab cause. Now it is back, Palestinian cause. Now Palestinian issue is up front in most of international political agendas.
Prime Minister Shtayeh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.